Hello everyone, welcome back to Kevin Sucks at Poker. This is vlog number 6. For this one, I'm back at Bellagio playing more 2-5. These hands were recorded on June 10th, 2022. Before we get into those hands though, a little real talk. So in my last vlog, if you saw, I lost 900 and I went back the next day to Bellagio and I lost 1700. So those are two pretty big losses in a row, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic here, but we've reached threat level midnight. And with the World Series here and all these cash games going on, I need to turn it around quick. I need to do a lot of studying. I need to get a lot better. I need to suck at poker less. And the only way I can think of to really get good, if you will, in a very short period of time is a montage. So roll the montage. Whew, that was quite a ride. I had some naysayers tell me that a 44-minute montage in the beginning of my poker vlog might be a bit excessive, but now that you've seen it, I think you'd agree that it was well worth your time. You can see all the hard work I put in, and I also set forth a very meticulous step-by-step process of what I did in case you too want to improve your cash games. Hopefully all that hard work and training will help in this session and in all future sessions. Without further ado, let's get into the hands for this vlog. I feel pretty confident that all that hard work and training is going to pay off immediately. It's Friday, June 10th here in Las Vegas, 2022. I pull into the Bellagio at 9:30 p.m. and it's a brisk 104 degrees outside. I get called for a new 2-5 game. All the rooms are super busy because of the World Series, and the open table that they had available to start this game happens to be in the high limit area. Ooh, fancy. It's not Bobby's room, but it's up in the high limit area, which is usually reserved for 5-10 or bigger. First hand of the night that I'm involved in, I have ace-2 of clubs in the under the gun position. I limp for 5. The hijack calls, the cutoff calls, the button raises to 25. I call, but everyone else folds. The flop is 10 of clubs, Jack of diamonds, 6 of diamonds. We both check. The turn is the 6 of hearts. I check. He bets 35. I feel like he's probably pretty weak here, so I check raise to 90, and he calls. When he calls my turn check raise, I figure there's a very real chance he's on a draw. There's straight draws and diamond draws. He could have something like Queen King also with 2 overs in a draw. He button raised after a bunch of limps, so he could be lighter than a normal raise would be, potentially suited connectors. So I'm thinking he could have something like a diamond draw here or diamond and a straight draw. The river is the 4 of clubs. All the straights miss, all the flushes miss. After check raising the turn, I obviously have nothing here. My options are to check and give up or take another bet at it. Since he felt weak to me, and if he missed any of those draws, he probably has to fold to a bet, I decide to bet 130. He calls pretty quick with 7-10 of spades. So he had second pair and just didn't really believe me. It's pretty easy to say that I played this one wrong since there wasn't a lot of money in the pot when I make my check raise on the turn, and I have no pair and no real draw. I guess an ace would have done the trick. Probably should find a better spot. No reason for me to lose 220, but rather than blame myself, I'd rather blame the montage. After that first hand, I add on another 200. In this next one, I'm on the button with pocket jacks. The under the gun player raises to 20. I 3-bet to 65. The small blind calls, the big blind calls, and the under the gun player also calls. So I've pretty much got them right where I want them with the monster of pocket jacks. And now it's time to play a game I like to play on my channel called Name the Worst. And in this particular situation, let's name the worst flop possible for pocket jacks. The flop is Queen of Clubs, Ace of Diamonds, King of Hearts. If that was your guess, I would say you're the winner here. Obviously, I pick up a gut shot with this flop, but the small blind shoves for 400, and it folds around to me. This one's a pretty easy decision. Don't really need to waste a lot of time here. I let this one go, and I add on another 100. Now I'm in for 800. Here I'm on the button with Jack Queen offsuit. The $10 straddle is on under the gun. The cutoff raises to 35. I call. The small blind calls, and the straddler makes the call. The flop is 6 of clubs, deuce of clubs, jack of spades. The cutoff bets 50. I call, and everybody else folds. The turn is the 4 of hearts. The cutoff checks to me. I bet 80, and he folds. In this next one, I have Queen 9 offsuit in the cutoff. The game's been playing mostly passively or small single raises. I don't know if there's been a 3-bet other than my 3-bet earlier with jacks. So I'm not too worried here about raising. I raise to 20. The big blind 3-bets to 55. And the big blind is someone I want to get involved with. He actually asked the floor to change one of the TVs that was showing a baseball game to the list, which is an interesting request. But he's clearly waiting for a bigger game. He's been pushing around a lot of chips, shoving on flops and turns in weird spots. He's clearly not playing a game as big as he wants to be playing. So he's a player that feels like they might dump off some chips. That being said, I don't love calling a 3-bet with Queen 9 offsuit, but since this is a player I do want to get involved with, I end up making the call. The flop is 2 of spades, queen of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. So I flop top pair with a not great kicker. He leads for 100, and if you're going to call a 3-bet with Queen 9 and the flop is Queen Deuce 4, you're probably going to at least make another call here. Otherwise, you probably couldn't have called the 3-bet pre-flop with Queen 9. So I do make the call. The turn is the 5 of clubs, which seems unlikely to have changed anything. 3-6 makes a straight, ace-3 makes a straight, so I guess if he 3-bet with something like ace-3 suited, he got there, but I don't think ace-3 or 3-6 are super likely here. He obviously could have any of the sets, less likely queens. The most likely hand I'm afraid of is kings or aces. Those definitely are possible, but again, this player has been playing a little crazy, so I don't necessarily take his aggression as being quite that strong. After the turn 5 of clubs, he shoves all in for 360. This is a tough spot, I think, because Queen 9 is not a great hand. Top pair with not a great kicker doesn't feel amazing here. He could have a better queen. He could have the kings. He could have aces. Those are really the hands I'm most afraid of. If he's got deuces, 4s, or 5s, then I'm not going to be able to put him on one of those hands. Of course, they're all possible. Same thing with ace-3 or 3-6. I'm not worried too much about any of those hands when he 3-bets pre-flop, even though I think his range is wider than most people's. So I'm really just trying to figure out if I think he has a better queen, kings or aces, and against a different player, maybe I can lay this down. But since I wanted to get involved with this guy because he's pushing chips around, and I feel like he's doing that pretty lightly a lot of the time, I tank for a little while, and I do end up making the call. The river is the king of hearts, which I of course don't love to see, but after the king hits the board, he shows pocket jacks, and my queen 9 is good, and I win a pretty nice pot. This is one of those times where your plan of getting involved with the player comes to fruition and it actually works out, as opposed to those 95% of the time when you overplay hands because you want to get involved with somebody who's dumping money and you end up just playing badly and or giving money away because you're trying to snap somebody off. This next one, I'm on the button with off-colored aces. The under the gun player limps. Everyone else folds. I raise to 20. The small blind calls and the under the gun player calls. The flop is jack of clubs, ace of diamonds, 10 of spades. So I flop the nice top set on a fairly connected and scary board. It gets checked to me. I bet 40. And both players call. The turn is a great one. It's the jack of spades giving me the top boat here. Now the under the gun player bets 55. I could raise here, but my hand is just crushing this board, and since I have someone betting at me, I don't feel like there's any reason to do that. I suppose if someone was on a draw here, maybe they'd put more money in to try to catch up on a draw, but since I have a player behind me yet to act who could call this bet, or even raise. I just feel like raising here is not a good play. So I just call. The small blind does end up folding. Now it's time once again to play name the worst card in the deck for the river. The river is the Jack of Diamonds, putting 3 jacks on the board. Now the under the gun player bets 100, and I'm not super happy in this situation. I'm not really thinking about folding here because I beat any 10. I beat the last ace in the deck, but there's really not a lot of hands that he can have here. Queen King's not betting this board probably, unless it's just bluffing now. A 10 could be betting the board. There's only 1 ace left in the deck, and there's also 1 jack left in the deck. So the odds of him having 4 jacks here are exactly the same as him having the last ace here by my math. So when he bets 100, I think for a while, can I raise for value at all here? If I raise and I get shoved on, I'm going to throw up and I'm going to have to fold because a raise would almost always mean quads here. And there's no way I could really call a raise. So I begrudgingly just make the call. He shows ace 7 of spades for the last ace. So I end up winning this one. I found a way to win the absolute minimum with a monster. I still feel like I played it right. I don't think raising the turn or the river makes much sense. I think both of those are probably not good plays. So just kind of a bad run out for me after I turn the full house and the river puts up a 3rd jack. But with 10 queen offsuit, I raise to 20, the low jack calls, the button calls, and the big blind calls. The flop is queen of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. I bet 35, the low jack calls, and the button and the big blind fold. The turn is the 9 of spades, giving me a gut shot to go along with my top pair. Decent kicker now. I bet 70, and he calls again. Not entirely sure what to make of his hand at this point. It could be a diamond draw, could be some sort of straight draw, could be a random 2 pair or even a set, but it doesn't feel that strong to me. The river is the jack of spades, so the diamond draw does not get there. I make a straight now with the 10. Not too afraid of anything. King 10 could be there, but it'd be pretty hard to call with King 10 on the flop, I think, unless you were just really floating light. So I bet 150. He ends up making the call. I show my straight and he mucks. So I'm not entirely sure what he had here. I'm guessing a better queen. That probably makes the most sense, but he also could have just been calling me down light with middle pair or something. Hard to know for sure. That seems less likely, but he doesn't show, so not entirely sure. Here I'm on the button with Jack King offsuit. I raise to 20 and the big blind calls. The flop is Jack of clubs, 4 of spades, 4 of hearts. He bets 20 and I call. The turn is the 9 of spades. He checks. I bet 50 and he folds. Here I'm in the cutoff with the ace of diamonds and the ace of clubs. I raise to 20 and only the button calls. The flop is all clubs, the queen, 3, 4, so I have a nice overpair and the nut flush draw. I bet 25 and the button calls. The turn is the 8 of clubs, bringing in the nut club draw for me. I bet 50, hoping he has a big club, but he folds. Here I'm on the button with ace 6 offsuit, which is not a great hand, don't love it, but the under the gun player limps, the +1 player limps, so I decide to limp with it and see what happens. I feel pretty comfortable with my post-flop play against most of these guys. The small blind player limps and the big blind player checks. So we are 5 ways to a flop. That comes 6 of clubs, 5 of spades, 3 of spades. It gets checked to me on the button. I decide to bet 20 at it, kind of a feeler bet, and only the small blind calls. The turn is the 7 of hearts. We both check. The river's the ace of hearts, bringing me in 2 pair. There's still a 4-liner on the board to a 4 for a straight. The small blind bets 40. I feel like my hand's a pretty clear call here. I think 2 pairs, too good to fold to a $40 bet, but obviously I don't want to raise here because the 4 does make a straight, and if I get raised again, probably have to fold and probably can't get called by worse. So I end up just making the call, and the small blind shows 2-4 for a flop straight, and I lose this hand. For this hand, I'm in the hijack with pocket jacks. I raise to 20, the button calls, and the big blind calls. The flop is Jack of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 10 of hearts, so I flop top set. There are some straight draws, but it's a rainbow board, so I feel pretty strong in my hand at this point. The big blind checks. I decide to check, and the button bets 45. The big blind folds, and obviously I could potentially raise here because of straight draws, but the button started this hand with about 330. I kind of make up my mind at this point once it's heads up that I'm willing to risk him taking straight draws to try to get his whole stack and not show the strength of my hand. So I end up just making a call rather than raising and hoping that he'll keep up the aggression on future streets. The turn is the 7 of hearts, which now brings in a backdoor heart draw, and 8-9 gets there, but I'm not too worried about that. I check again to the button. He looks like he's interested in betting. He does bet 80, and now I feel like it's a good time to raise. He's already put in about 125. He doesn't have a whole lot behind, only about 175 more. So I put him all in for his last 175 or so. Any real hand is pretty hard for him to fold because he's got so much of his money in there. The only thing he could really fold is just a complete bluff here. So he does end up making the call. The river is one of the remaining cards in the deck. I didn't write down what it was. Can almost see in the video that maybe it's like a 9 or 10 of spades. I don't know. I don't want to lie to you guys and tell you I do know. Apparently it doesn't matter. I show my set of jacks and he mucks and I win. This one's pretty interesting, I think. I'm in the cutoff with Jack 8 of diamonds. I raise to 20, the button calls, the big blind calls, and at this time we're only playing 6-handed, so my game's just a little short. And the flop is deuce of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, 5 of clubs. So that's a pretty good flop for Jack 8 of diamonds. It is connected, but I've got a nice diamond draw and 2 overs, so it gets checked to me. I bet 25. The button raises to 60. I don't really think 3-betting makes a lot of sense here. I also don't want to fold. I have a lot of draws here. So I do make the call. I'm trying to figure out what he could potentially be raising with here. It could be really any of these strong kind of connected hands. It could be random sets. It could be ace-4 for a straight, making a wheel. That would be a lot of strength from such a strong hand, but there are 2 diamonds on the board. This particular player is the guy I stacked with a set of jacks, but I haven't seen him really getting out of line. I haven't seen him show any bluffs down or anything, so when he raises me on the flop, I give him credit for having a reasonably strong hand, even if it's just 4 something with an open-ended draw. But I figure I'll call here, see how the rest of the hand plays out. The turn is the 8 of spades, giving me top pair, still with the big diamond draw. I check to him, and he bets 105. Again, I haven't seen this guy do any kind of crazy aggression without hands. I haven't seen raises and bluffs come from him yet. And I still have my diamond draw along with top pair, which is, I think, just way too strong to lay down here. And I'm considering raising, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense here either, because he's played his hand like he has a pretty strong hand. If I raise here, it feels like he could shove pretty easily, and I don't really want to be stuck in a position where I have to call off a lot of chips with just top pair if I miss my draw, or top pair with the draw and then I miss, when I could just call 105 and see what happens on the river. So I do just call here, and the river's the 7 of clubs. So none of the flush draws get there, but there are a lot of straights that are in there, although the 7 doesn't really change anything. A 4-6 was a straight the whole time. So the 7's kind of a brick card. I check to him again, and this time he bets 255. I'm in a pretty tough spot here, I think. If this were a player who were going crazy, maybe I would think my one pair is good. But this board is just so connected. I lose to a bunch of suited connectors. I lose to a bunch of low sets, which he could have called with pre-flop a raise with, pocket twos, pocket threes, pocket fives. After thinking for quite a while, I just don't see how top pair is good here. He could have overpairs too, but I think this board's so connected, I think overpairs should probably even be checking behind me on this river. I think for quite a while, and I fold. I think this is right play. You can let me know in the comments what you think. I obviously don't see his hand. Later on, he and I talked about it. He subscribed to the vlog as well. He was a nice guy. He told me that he had queen 10 and that it was a bluff. I didn't see it, so I don't know. He seemed to be telling the truth when he told me that, but who knows? Let me know what you think, though, in the comments, if you think this was a good fold or whether you think I'm supposed to call off for 255 here with top pair with an 8. He said to me that he made the bluff because he thought I had ace-king. And this circles back to one of the things I've talked about on prior blog, which is that people like to think that you have ace-king when you raise. I don't know why. They just think if you raise, you have ace-king. And then a lot of the time, if ace-king would beat them, they don't think you had ace-king. Here I'm in the big blind with queen of diamonds, 8 of clubs. The cutoff raises to 15, and I call. The flop is 9 of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, jack of hearts, so I flop a straight. We both check. The turn is the ace of diamonds, bringing in 3 diamonds. I feel like if he raised pre-flop and he had a diamond draw, he probably would have continuation bet the flop, although that's not always the case. I bet 20 with my straight, he just calls. The river is the 5 of hearts. I bet 65. He calls, I show my straight and win. He does not show, so I can't tell you what he had. Here we're still kind of short-handed. Now we're down to 5. I'm on the button with ace-queen offsuit. The under-the-gun player raises to 20. I could probably 3-bet here. I do that some of the time, but here I just call. The big blind also calls. The flop is the 4 of hearts, 3 of spades, 7 of spades. That's a pretty big brick for me. The under-the-gun player bets 30, but I do make the call with 2 nice overcards, and the big blind also calls. The turn is the 7 of diamonds, and this time it gets checked to me on the button. I bet 60. The under-the-gun player calls, and the big blind player folds. The river is the jack of hearts, and he checks to me again. This board just doesn't seem to me super great for his pre-flop raising range. He could have a big pair, but if so, I guess he would check call the turn. When he checks to me, all the flushes missed. It just doesn't seem that great for the pre-flop raising range other than big pairs. So it's better for my calling range. Now there's a decent amount of money in the pot. So I think it's worth a shot to try to bet at this one once he checks to me again, showing more weakness. So I bet 140. He tanks for a while and calls with pocket 8s. So he ends up winning this one. I just felt like he checks the turn and calls, which could be a hand with an overpair to the board. But then when he checks the river, it's just a little too much weakness for me to check back. So I decided it was worth a shot, and he makes a good call with 8s, and I lose this one. Here I'm in the small blind with ace-king offsuit. There is an under-the-gun straddle to 10, who's pretty short stacked. The cutoff raises to 30. Here I do 3-bet to 100, and the straddle goes all in for about 130. The cutoff fold is obviously an easy call for me for 30 or so, so I do call. You can see him holding his cards here. He's showing a 6. I believe he told me he had a pair of 6s. The flop is 8-8-7. The turn is a 10, and the river is another 10. The dealer is counting out his chips, and I'm telling him I have him covered. And he's like, yeah, I know, but he's all in. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I have him covered, but he's still counting out the chips. And I'm trying to explain, you don't have to count out his chips. I get all of them. I have him covered. And so that's at this point I realized that both the guy with the pocket 6s and the dealer think that the pocket 6s won here. And I have to explain, no, I have 2 pairs, 10s and 8s with an ace. And he has the board, essentially. So once we get that clarified, I end up getting pushed the pot, and I win this one. All right, what's going on, everyone? It's almost 3. It's about 10 to 3. And I just cashed out, in for 800, out for 1551 for a win of 751. A little disappointed with that when I was up 1200. Not a single one of my bluffs got through, I don't think. I have to rewatch the recordings, but I don't think any of them got through. I think I took a shot at about 3 decent-sized bluffs. I thought they made sense, but apparently my opponents did not. Or sometimes you're just going to get called down. I probably should have stopped trying to bluff once the first 2 got called, but calling it a night here. I'm pretty tired. My game got down to like 4 or 5 handed. It's been like that for over an hour, and since I'm tired, I'm not going to re-roll seats and move to a new game. I'm just going to call it for the night. Hopefully they keep going good. Been running really good lately. Had a great Memorial Day weekend, and then had a great last weekend also, so on a nice winning streak. All right, I'm back for a very quick outro. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you want to send me a comment, do that also. I tend to respond to pretty much all of them. I'm just going to list on the screen my wins and losses since the last vlog to this vlog. As I've said before, if I record a session, there will be a vlog about it, so you're not just seeing sessions where I win. I am showing the sessions where I lose also. It just happens to be the luck of the draw whether I win or lose on the session I record, but I do keep a running total so everybody can see how I'm doing overall. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.